Hello everyone, my name is Laurent Mélier. I am a registered geologist with the state of California, and I am going to be presenting about the science of limnology, and I'm going to be using Dr. Wetzel's eminent book on limnology, on lake and rivers ecosystem. And this is the fourth edition of the book, and it was edited by Dr. Jones and Dr. Small. And I want to recognize the copyright of that book. And this book was published in 2024. And there are 31 chapters in this book. So we'll go one chapter at a time. And therefore, I'm going to be creating one video per chapter. And we'll just scroll through the book. And I'll go through some of the concepts that are presenting in each of the chapters. So these are the chapters. And the table of contents. And so the first chapter is a prologue from Dr. Jones and Dr. Small. So limnology in the 21st century, and water is essential to life on Earth. For human beings, the surface waters on land are especially vital because these are the waters that we access for sustaining our daily lives, providing a plethora of ecosystem services. Inland waters encompass a remarkably broad array of forms, as shown in figures 1 through 4. Nevertheless, inland waters only represent a small fraction of the water on the planet, dwarfed in volume by that in the salty ocean or trapped in ice. So the study of these inland waters in their various guises and the crucial role they play in our global environment is imperative for our continuing existence. And this study is limnology. So not only are inland waters fundamental to our current lives, but they are also under unprecedented threat from human activities. Burgeoning population growth and expanding economic development place demands on available water never previously experienced, while the various pressures from climate change, nutrient enrichment, invasive species, and more put these finite resources under an unparalleled level of stress. So the vulnerability of inland waters to these twin burdens of increased demand and increased stress presents a singular challenge that must be overcome to ensure a sustainable future. Our ability to meet such a challenge is predicated on our ability to understand the processes at play, which is where limnology comes in. So the study of these inland waters, though, encompasses not one, but multiple disciplines. The limnologist must be a physicist, a chemist, and a biologist, an engineer, a hydrologist, and a statistician, an ecologist, a geologist, and a social scientist. And the spatial scales of interest range from nano to global. The relevant timescales span milliseconds to millennia, and we have much work to do. So I also want to recognize Dr. Wetzel. And Dr. Wetzel lived between 1936 and 2005. And there was an increasing understanding of the urgency to study inland waters back in the early 1970s, even when global demands on water were a fraction of these today. And some of the stressors that occupy us now were known or little discussed. Dr. Wetzel, recognized this need and set about producing a comprehensive textbook on lakes that resulted in the first edition of Limnology in 1975. And the book provided an inclusive base of information on all aspects of lakes. It was aimed at upper year undergraduate courses and was a first reference for seasoned limnologists and other specialists, quickly becoming the standard textbook in the field. And the need for such a text did not diminish over the years, with an enlarged second edition published in 1983. And actually, I have the second edition right here that was published and edited by Dr. Wetzel. And I took a class in limnology at the University of Maine using these textbooks back in the 1990s. So the need for such a text did not diminish over the years, and so as we just said, it was published in 1983 for the second edition, and then a much revised and expanded third edition in 2001 that included river ecosystem was also published and stretched to over 1,000 large format pages. For many limnologists, it has been the principal text they use from their student years to their professional careers. So before we embark a little bit more into the text, I wanted to kind of present these pictures of the various forms that lakes and inland waters take around the world. So that's a really good pictures of some of these inland waters. So we have, like, for example, in A here, we have the Lough of Aller in Ireland. We have Adam streams and the dry valleys of Antarctica. We have an Amazonian wetland in Peru, in number C. We have Lake Bogoria in Kenya. We have Niagara Falls here, and we all know where Niagara Falls is located, in between the US and Canada. And then we have F, which is headwaters west of Tokyo. And then we have, like, for example, here in A, we have headwaters in Daintree Forest in Queensland, Australia, or we have Lake Erken in Sweden. In E, here we have a pond in Ontario, Canada. Here in A, we have High Arctic Thoris Glacier and Proglacial Thoris Lake. We have the plunge pool in New Zealand here in B. We have the River Nile in F, in Egypt, of course. We have now, let's see here, we have a small lake on Ellesmere Island, which is in the high Arctic of Canada. We have the Caspian Sea from Iran in F here. So, the third edition has endured as one of the definitive limnology texts, but cannot continue to do so perpetually. So science moves forward relentlessly. Some core principle may remain indefinitely, at least until a revolutionary understanding replaces them, but much of the science is a continuous process with layers after layer of new information enhancing our understanding of the world. Though the third edition came out in 2001, much of it was surely written in the preceding decade. In the world of science, 20 to 30 years is a long time. So much has changed in our understanding of limnology during that time, and new threats have emerged to be tackled. Tragically, Dr. Wetzel passed away in 2005, and for many years subsequently, it seemed that the third edition would be the last edition, but not the latest. The idea that one person could put together a new volume on the scale of Wetzel's earlier editions appear unthinkable, and nevertheless, with the knowledge that the third edition would eventually become obsolete, with the sense that a text as comprehensive as the previous editions was still required, and with the full cooperation of the Wetzel family, it was ultimately proposed that it was time to produce a fourth edition. So this is the fourth edition that we'll be reviewing. For the fourth edition, a recurring theme in putting this volume together has been how on earth did one person do this? And indeed, it has taken nearly 60 authors and 2 editors to produce this volume, 60 times as many people to produce a book of roughly the same length as one person had done before. Our respect for Robert Wetzel's knowledge and industry is overwhelming. Wetzel's name is still on the cover of the book, and with good reason. He is still an author on this edition, albeit a silent one, unnamed in the individual chapters. The overall scope of the book, the narrative thread, and some of the original text, figures, and tables are still evident throughout the book. On rare occasions, some materials and data that were unique to the earlier version have a citation to the third edition to indicate that origin. In general, though, text and figures kept in this edition from the last edition are uncited and intermingled with new text, as if Robert Wetzel were named as one of the chapter's authors. The passing of the years, of course, means that much also needed to be added or to be removed from the previous edition, following the developments in our understanding of science and reflected in a large number of post-2001 references to present. So putting a new edition together does, though, necessitate a dizzying array of choices and decisions, and the easiest of which was to rule out the notion that just 1 or 2 people would produce the new text. Instead, a new model was adopted in which each individual chapter is now written by one or a small number of experts, specialists, who are aware of the most important themes and latest development in their own fields. Contributors include authorities on biological, chemical, and physical aspects of aquatic science, and these authors could decide how much of the original text they wish to keep and how much to update, and which new topics needed incorporating. As editors, it was necessary to determine what to include and what to exclude, where to grow and where to prune, and how to order the material to maintain a functioning narrative. Each chapter needed simultaneously to stand alone and to fit into a greater whole. Chapters in previous edition had been notoriously variable in size. While there are still large discrepancies, chapter lengths are now more standardized than before. Some topics that were dealt with relatively quickly in old editions now have substantially more space devoted to them. Some particularly large chapters have been split into two, and a few new chapters have spawned. Given the explosion in limnological studies in the last 20 years, a challenge for all authors was how to keep the overall size manageable. It is perhaps inevitable with science, given our finite understanding of its complexity, that some phenomena are considered slightly differently by different people, engendering debate on those topics. Evidence can be contradictory, confusing, and incomplete. Multiple hypotheses can plausibly explain the same findings. Awareness of different processes can influence interpretation. It's actually, a very important component here of this book is a recognition that multiple hypotheses can lead to the same conclusion, and that's even germane in our political arena. Often the topics stimulating the most vibrant discussion evolve through time. Some topics that were perceived from contrasting angles 20 or 30 years ago have subsequently transmuted into themes, enjoying a broad consensus, while other subjects now stimulate a spirited dialogue instead. Having a book with multiple authors allows diverse and interesting perspective to be communicated and enables through time new consensuses to emerge and scrutiny to fall on other issues. The style of the book has been modernized. Color images, photographs abound, options that would not have been readily available to scientific texts over 2 decades ago. And as you can see here, for example, in the second edition, we had like black and white, text and pictures, of course. And to an extent, that follows a traditional view that the physics impacts the chemistry and that they both influence the biology. But of course, there are multiple feedbacks between all the subjects. Similarly, there are multiple feedbacks among chapters. Concepts that can be central to more than one chapter, and linkages move back and forth throughout the text. For a book of this size, such overlaps are inevitable and help to reinforce important limnological concepts. As in previous editions, short summaries are provided at the end of each chapter to offer a synopsis of the key points within that field, and the book remains aimed toward upper year undergraduate students and for use as a first source for the professional limnologists when seeking information outside of their own limnological experience. And I can vet for that. I have actually used that textbook, the second edition, quite extensively in my professional career as a geologist. So it is fair to say that though lakes and rivers get equal billing in the title of the book, the 2001 edition focused more on the lake aspect than the river aspect. And this bias persists somewhat in this edition, although there is an increase in the consideration given to rivers, not least because of the impact that rivers themselves have on lakes. Another theme to gain more weight in this edition is that of the impacts of environmental change and multiple stressors, particularly climate change, on inland aquatic ecosystem. And these threats are too important to omit from a comprehensive textbook on limnology. So Robert Wetzel worked in the US and throughout his career, but was an early advocate of the need for global perspective. While the North American roots of this textbook are still evident with many authors based in that continent, this edition is international. Authors stem from multiple countries, encompassing six continents. We anticipate that future edition will be even more international in scope. Limnology is a global subject and a collective undertaking. Inland waters are distributed worldwide, as we just saw, and need to be understood in a worldwide context, both in terms of their geographical influence on ecosystem function and their relevance to society in different parts of the planet. As argued in chapter 31, working collaboratively across the globe is a necessity for better understanding our lakes, rivers, and wetlands, and for tackling the threats they currently face. This edition represents only a stepping stone in that journey toward understanding the world of inland waters. So this is the end of chapter 1, Prologue. Thank you.